Thank you for the chance to be able to share this lesson. Ang topic po natin ngayon ay walang iba kung hindi managing anger appropriately. Yan, parang mga sunod-sunod na upos ng sigarian ng posporo. Kapag sumindi talagang sunod-sunod ang pag-iinit. But let me just share this scripture na pang-intro din to ni Dr. Getz dun sa libro niya. Sabi niya doon, ito. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. And do not give the devil a foothold. So our topic will be about managing anger. At siguro para sa akin, I chose this topic because this is the sin that gets to me so many times. Kahit na ang dami ko ng beses na sinusubukan siyang labanan. And I'm convicted even as I chose this kasi alam ko na this is the sin that God wants me to get help most on. So I'm sharing this hindi dahil na-overcome ko na to, pero dahil ito ang or na-overcome ko na sinning in anger, pero dahil ito ang struggle na talagang isa sa mga bagay na kailangan ko ng tulong. Okay. Pero siguro bago tayo mag-start, pray muna tayo. Father in heaven, thank you so much just for this opportunity that we can be together as a band of brothers. And tunay nga God na ang prayer namin ay matutunan namin kung paano namin talagang i-manage ang anger namin. I know that many of us also go through this. Thank you for allowing Dr. Getz to teach us how to deal with anger appropriately. Be with us as we have this lesson. We love you. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. All right. So, ano ba tong ano ba nga ba yung salitang anger? Ang feeling ko kasi kailangan natin ng konting intro sa kanya. And it's actually yung word na anger is actually an Old Norse word coming from the word angra, which means grief or feeling bitterness, sama ng loob. So anger, of course, is the emotion that displays strong feelings of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. Sa Tagalog, yun yung pagiging irritable, yung pagkainis, or yung feeling mo parang palaaway ka, which we will tackle in a moment. Pero dun sa start ng chapter, totoo ako kay Dr. Getz dahil talagang he's like a dad, kung magkwento ng buhay niya. He talked about just his experience while he was growing up, and one of the things that he had was ang feeling niya, yung anger niya na na identify niya na passive aggressive. So sabi ko, first time ko yata na na-encounter tong word na passive aggressive. So ni-research ko ng konti. And I found out na yung anger pala has 3 types, na dinescribe. And ito yung passive-aggressive, at saka yung open aggression, pati yung assertive anger. Okay. So pag sinabing passive-aggressive, ito yung non-confrontational na anger. So these are the people who don't like to commit or who don't like to admit na galit sila. Pero sa totoo lang na malaki yung sama ng loob na meron sila sa dibdib nila. Now, sometimes they're quiet when they're upset, or they resort to getting even when everything has already quieted down. Yun namang open aggression, ito yung mga tao na who may lash out in rage or become physically or verbally aggressive and have the tendency to want to hurt others or themselves. So tulad ng nakita nating photo kanina, yung sumusuntok ng dingding, or inaampas yung ulo sa dingding, ganyan. Yung meron silang tendency na maging physical sa kanilang galit. And then the third one is assertive anger. Okay, and this is what many think is a healthy way of dealing with anger, kasi this one usually controls his emotion and is open to get help when dealing with situations. He's the kind of person who thinks before he speaks and allows others to share his view of things. Pero whatever type of anger we have, kailangan maintindihan natin na it's part of our character that we are born with and must know how to deal with. Okay, so tingnan natin paano natin gagawin yan. Balikan natin yan mamaya. So ang anger daw, sabi ni Dr. Getz, is a natural emotional response that all men have. You know, ang maganda yung description ni Dr. Getz doon. Sabi niya, it's a natural God-created emotion. So in other words, pati talaga ng buhay ang makaramdam ng galit. Okay, so we shouldn't feel weird about getting upset when we have that emotion. Kaya lang, tulad ng sinabi ni Paul sa Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26, kailangan matuto tayong magalit ng hindi nagkakasala. Sabi niya, be angry and yet do not sin. Dun sa NLT version, ang sabi doon, and don't sin by letting anger control you. And of course, a good example of this is si Jesus. In John chapter 2, verse 13 to 17, this is where Jesus was able to express his anger. Sabi nga dito, when it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found men selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple area, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. How dare you turn my father's house into a market?" His disciples remembered that it is written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." So dito, nung nakita ni Jesus yung mga money changers, na ine-exploit yung mga tao, in-overturn niya yung mga tables, kinalat niya yung pera doon sa courtyard. Tapos gumawa siya ng whip doon sa mga cords na hawak niya. Tapos pinaalis niya yung mga baka, pinaalis niya yung mga sheep doon sa temple area. Diba? Talagang intense. Kumbaga, intense yung situation, yung moment na pinasukan niya. And yet, although he was angry, hindi siya nagkasala. So, when does anger become sinful? Kailan nga ba nagiging sinful ang anger? Diba? Paano ba natin magagaya yung example ni Jesus? Well, one thing na sinabi ni Dr. Getz dun sa libro was that madalas nangyayari to when we become quick-tempered or when we have quick-tempered behavior. In other words, yung nagwawala ka sa galit. So angry feelings, sa Titus chapter 1, verse 7, ang sabi doon, kinukwento dito, of course, yung character ng isang overseer. Sabi niya, since an overseer is entrusted with God's work, he must be blameless, not overbearing, not quick-tempered, not given to drunkenness, not violent, not pursuing dishonesty. Yung salita na ginamit dito ni Paul was actually the word passionate. In Greek, ang Greek word nun is peripathis, or in Latin, it's pati or passus, meaning intense enthusiasm or compelling desire. Siguro another word for that in English would be yung rage, yung matinding galit. And of course, this is bad because this has a tendency to bring us to be destructive. And an example of this would be verbal abuse. Hindi naman necessarily kailangan maging physical para maging angry, pero minsan yung salita na lang natin, hindi natin naiintindihan, dulot ng sama pala sa buhay ng tao. An example of this that Dr. Getz explained was yung nanay at saka yung isang anak na nasa loob ng isang restaurant at accidentally siguro, sabi niya, parang nabuhos yata ng bata yung maring nabuhos niya yung inumin nila. At yung nanay hindi tumigil ng kaka-sermon doon sa bata. Kahit na nasa labas na ng restaurant, pinapagalitan pa rin. And para sa kanya talagang kaawa naman daw yung itsura ng bata kasi hindi na makalingon sa nanay kahit na tinatawag na ng pansin. So, what he noticed there was that verbal abuse can be more devastating than physical abuse. Usually, ang mga batang ape, di kaagad nagsasabi ng kanilang nararamdaman. Kaya sa huli, lumalabas na lang siya kapag sa ibang paraan, Tulad ng siguro yung mga nangyari din sa atin, pagsusubok ng drugs, pag-iinom, o pagsisigarilyo. Dahil sa passive-aggressive behavior na kanilang natutunan in repressing angry feelings. Passive aggression often leads a person to be depressed or to be self-condemned or withdraw from people. On the other hand, if left unchecked, anger can become active anger, which can end up with a lot of violent choices like fighting, joining and forming violent gangs or defiant gangs, who may displace angry feelings to other children. Eventually, if left unchecked, this behavior can lead them to getting in trouble with the law or even end up in prison. So ano pa yun ni Paul sa ganito ugali ng galit? Again in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 26-27, sabi niya, "Do not let the sun go down on your anger and do not give the devil an opportunity." So practically speaking, when we experience intense anger, kailangan natin ng cooling off period. Diba? Kumbaga, parang ang sinasabi dito, kailangan umalis tayo sa ilalim ng araw kapag umiinit ang ulo natin. Kasi pag mainit ang ulo, tulad nga nung mga upos ng posporo kanina na nakita natin, diba, madaming mga naaapektuhan. Kailangan natin makapagpalipas oras, siguro bago tayo magsalita o bago tayo kumilos. Because this will give us an opportunity to think more objectively and view the situation a lot more clearly. Dito rin natin iniiwasan yung tinatawag na vindictive behavior, which is a strong or unreasonable desire to get even. Diba? Kapag mainit ang ulo natin, ang tendency natin minsan, gusto natin bumawi. Gusto natin kagad kumilos para mabawian natin ng sama ng loob yung taong nakasakit sa atin. And of course, this is a natural response. Yun ay parte ng pagkatao natin. But God said that this is not our right and this is not also our responsibility. Hindi natin responsibilidad na bumawi. Okay, sa Romans chapter 12, verse 17-19, ang sabi doon, "Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." So, tulad nga ng sinabi dun sa verse 19, never pay back evil for evil to anyone. Never take revenge, but leave room for the wrath of God. Diba? Si God na ang bumabawi. Kumbaga, alam naman ni God yung nararamdaman natin. Alam ni God yung pinagdadaanan natin. And it's important na matutunan natin to overcome evil with good. Na dapat tanggalin natin yung notion of revenge. Otherwise, if we allow this to be our way of doing things, our angry feelings will lead us to violence and abuse tulad na napag-usapan natin kanina. Yung concept or idea daw ng salitang revenge means to be a striker. In other words, it shows a picture of someone who wants to hurt people through physical force. Especially in disciplining our children, we need to be careful not to allow our anger to go out of control, which can lead to out of control physical discipline, which is definitely sinful. Okay. So, ano ang mga causes ng anger? One, kailangan maintindihan natin that we are made in the image of God. God is both a God of love and a God of anger. And because we are made in His image, we have the capacity to experience both of these emotions. So, anger in itself is not bad. Okay? Talagang ginawa tayo ni God para makaramdam tayo ng ganong emosyon. But we also have to understand that we are also born with a sinful nature. Isa nga dun sa mga parang pinagtatalunan ni Dr. Get sa isip niya is whether Adam and Eve already had the notion of anger even before they fell into sin. Pero di man natin sila nakitang magalit kay God sa pagpalaya sa kanila sa Garden of Eden after the fall. It allowed the door to be open to sinful anger. And an example of this, of course, was the wickedness of Cain's anger when he took his brother's life. That's book of Genesis. Okay. Again, another cause of anger is because we've been exposed to bad examples. So in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 24 to 25, ang sabi doon, do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. Angry people nurture anger in others. This is especially serious. This is a especially serious issue when a bad model is a child's parent. Children cannot remove themselves from a negative home environment. Our children need good models, not perfect models. Kaya ako, one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to, if you're wondering how you can be better as a parent, not exactly a perfect parent, but a better parent, kung may pagkakataon kayo sumali sa ating mga Good Enough Parenting series that we have in church, that we had in church before the pandemic, pag nagkaroon tayo ulit ng pagkakataon na gano'n, I suggest that we participate in it because it's really a good source of learning kung paano tayo mandidisiplina ng mga bata. When we get trained in that way, we will know how to deal with or handle situations in a godly manner, even when they're also angry. Naalala ko yung anak ko si Michael. One time, galit na galit siya sa kapatid niya. Dahil iniwanan siya na mag-isa. Tapos sumama dun sa mga kaibigan niya. In other words, bigla siyang naging mag-isa dun sa lugar nila. And umuwi siya, umiiyak talaga. And then he went directly to both Chennai, tapos nagkwento siya ng sama ng loob niya. Expressing his anger towards his brother. And at that age siguro mga lang siya, 5 or 6 years old when that happened. So parang 'di ba pag mga ganung age, inisip mo parang cute pa, pero ang totoo noon, that's already developing the kind of person that he'll be when he grows up. We let him talk first, express himself, before afterwards gently teaching him on what to do. And later that day, we prayed and had him talk about how he felt to his brother. So, kwento siya ng sama ng loob na kay CJ. And, it's good kasi I felt like that became a stepping stone to today where his brother is now his confidante and his best friend in everything that they go through. So, malaki talagang nagagawa ng ang feeling natitrain tayo and knowing how to deal with anger. I think another cause of anger is yung ating insecurity. Even in church, we are surrounded by imperfect people who may discourage us rather than help us feel secure and accepted by others. And sometimes we handle our insecurities with hurtful anger, which leads to further rejection and social isolation. Lastly, we have it's possible that we also have been physically abused. Sadly, one of the more common issues in our country is the physical and emotional abuse, especially with children. Pagka mga babae, women mostly suffer from being battered physically, while men are victims psychologically. So, for children, napakahirap nitong challenge na to because kailangan nila ng mga mas nakakatanda who can help them discern the source of their emotional and spiritual problems caused by this abuse. Sometimes in our culture, we love to compare ourselves with others and measure our worth through them. And kailangan huwag natin gawin itong ugali kasi lalo na kapag nakakadala sa parang masamang reputasyon sa harap ng ibang tao. We need to be a brother instead of a mongerer and talk to our brother in person. Kung meron tayong mga nararamdaman na kailangan nilang baguhin. Okay? Okay. Alright. So, okay, next. What can we do to overcome sinful anger? One is to develop a biblical perspective on anger. Okay, so paano ba natin gagawin yan? We need to ask ourselves some questions. Okay, one is, sabi ni Dr. Getz, do I get angry quickly and frequently? Okay. Madali ba akong magalit at palagi ba akong galitin sa mga sitwasyon? Do I allow angry feelings to persist and linger? Diba? May kilala ko isang Christian, taon na, yung galit niya. Tapos pagka naaalala niya yung tao, minsan inaalaw niyang ma-fan into flame yung galit niya. And so tumatagal lalo tuloy yung kanyang galit dun sa tao kahit na hindi niya na nakikita for years. Another is, do I take matters into my own hands and get even with others who make me angry? So the reason why we want to ask these questions is to find out ano ba response natin. And if you answered yes to any of these questions, then you are facing a personal anger problem that has a tendency to become sinful. So ang attitude natin dyan is, let's begin by confessing this to God and claiming ongoing forgiveness through the blood of Christ. Be honest with God. Tell Him exactly how you feel. Acknowledge your sinful actions, confess the sin, and ask Him to help you overcome this problem. Okay. Next is, isolate the cause of your anger. Okay. Isipin natin, kaya ba ako madaling magalit kasi ito yung example pa nung lumalaki ako. It doesn't have to be your parent. It could be somebody you grew up close with, that you spent a lot of time with. Okay. Another is, have you become a self-centered person? Sarili mo lang ba ang iniisip mo madalas? Have you had an overly restrictive childhood? Dati ka bang napapagsabihan, napapagalitan ng bata ka? Kaya parang, in a sense, pinapasa mo sa iba yung ganong ugali. Have you been abused or mistreated? Yun din, nakakadulot din yun ng anger sa atin. And lastly, do you battle feelings of insecurity? So, tandaan natin na most anger problems have multiple causes. So, importante maging open tayo sa isa't isa tungkol sa mga struggles na to para makakuha tayo ng objective, godly input tungkol sa mga sitwasyon natin. Okay, another is take action to overcome your problem. Kahit ano mangyari, huwag tayo maghanap ng sisisihin. Kahit sila pa yung pinanggagalingan ng galit natin. Don't take revenge, allow God to make things right, and develop the heart to understand and have insight. Ako na-appreciate ko si Dr. Getz kasi may mga scriptures na shinare dun sa libro that can help us to think and ponder about these things. So I'm going to share some of them with you. Yung Proverbs chapter 14 verse 29 sa NIV, sabi niya, he who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. So, ang ganda, di ba? Talagang pagka malamig kang, pagka cool ka na tao, malalim ang pagkakaintindi mo sa sitwasyon. Hindi ka kagad nag-iisip na masama tungkol sa mga pangyayari. Another is in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 27. A man of knowledge uses words of restraint, and a man of understanding is even-tempered. Lastly, sa Proverbs 19, verse 11, sabi doon, a man's discretion allows him slow to anger. Dito sa NIV, a man's wisdom gives him patience. It is to his glory to overlook an offense. So these proverbs give us all a very important insight. The more we understand the circumstance surrounding our anger, the more we will be able to control it. So have an intelligent and rational approach. Minsan, there are some people who think na letting off some steam is okay. Yung gumagamit sila ng parang punching bag mentality. Yung mga iba sumisigaw sa unan para maglabas ng sama ng loob nila. At some time, siguro sa umpisa, parang okay yun, pero we need to really approach the problem more sensibly and responsibly. Naalala ko the other day, kami ni CJ, nagkaroon ako ng internet connection problem. Kasi ginagawa ko yung backup na internet connection ko kung sakaling magkaroon ng problema. Kasi nga, sabi ng Smart at saka ng Globe na baka hindi gumana yung kanilang internet for the next few days. And while I was trying to get help from CJ, I noticed talagang nagiging impatient kasi he was doing his thing na para sa akin hindi naman masyadong importante. It's parang ang feeling ko hindi naman ako nabibigyan ng tulong na kailangan ko. I became very demanding, and then I suddenly realized hindi naman niya problema yung problema ko. I should be more patient, and I should just ask him humbly kung matutulungan niya ako dun sa ginagawa ko. So, in other words, dapat hindi tayo parang mga bata na biglang na lang nagagalit kapag hindi natin nakukuha yung gusto natin. And we should avoid saying some things, especially when the feelings are unusually intense. Kasi sa huli, baka pagsisiyan lang natin. Although it's not wrong to share our feelings of anger, we should not use it to attack another person. For example, you can express your hurts and disappointments, and at the same time, admit that you're not sure if you understand everything that's going on or happening at the moment. And normally, this is the truth, even if we think we got everything figured out already. There are always circumstances that we don't understand. Tulad ng, kunyari, habang nagmamaneho ka, bigla ka na lang kinat ng ibang driver sa harapan mo. Kailangan intindihin natin, baka meron siyang emergency, o baka meron siyang, importanteng kailangan puntahan. Not that we're giving him an excuse, but at least you're preventing yourself from entertaining malicious thoughts about what happened. So, this is different, from the person who says things like, ang insensitive mo naman. O, hindi mo ba nakikita kung ano ginagawa mo sa akin at sa maraming tao? But parang pinag-iinitan mo ako palagi. Palagi nagagalit ka sa akin. Ano ba problema mo? We should avoid those kinds of talk kasi yung mga salitang nangahamon ng sagot, nakakadala ng pananakit lang lalo sa isa't isa. So the challenge really is to set specific goals for your life where you fall short on or feel trouble. And then we also need to have preventive maintenance in overcoming our sinful nature. Kumbaga sa sasakyan, these are things that we can do to keep us from getting in trouble. Example is we need to stay spiritually in tune. Diba? Check natin yung prayer life natin. Ina-avoid ba natin na maging in fellowship kay God frequently? Do we look for lessons in the scriptures that can prepare you for the coming day ahead? Another is avoid having to face difficult and tense situations when you are physically or emotionally tired. Diba? Kung pagod ka na, you can just let them know that you're not ready yet to talk about the situation, and you'd like to rest first and talk about it some other time. Okay lang yon. Okay lang na magsabi nun para hindi bumulusok yung galit natin. Kung nakakaramdam tayo ng galit. Engage in regular exercises. You know, maganda rin yun. Tulad ng ginagawa ni Kuya Dom, nakakaingit yun. Nakakapag-bike siya, you know. That's a great way of releasing a lot of physical tension, especially if you work under pressure and constant tension. And then practicing things that don't come across offensive or threatening. You know, don't brood, you know, but communicate in a clear, straightforward, but loving manner. And then lastly, learn to back off aggravating situations. Ask yourself, ba't nga ba nangyari yun? You know, baka naman may problema si bro o si sis. Teka, diba, makamusta nga mamaya para malaman ko lalo kung ano nangyari. So instead of aggravating the situation, think of what you can do to be part of the solution. You know, sa James chapter 1, verse 19 to 20, sabi doon, my dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For a man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Okay, so ang group discussions natin. Number 1, what experiences did you have that went out of control and what happened? Number 2, what have you discovered is the most constructive way to handle your own anger? Number 3, what have you discovered about the causes of your anger? Number 4, what do you do when you have nowhere to go to share your angry feelings? And then number 5, do you know someone who has an anger problem? Have you prayed to God about them without breaking or violating a confidence? So ang goal, write down what you want to achieve as a result of the study, share them with each other, and pray for each other. Muli, maraming salamat. Let's be slow to have sinful anger in our lives. And amen. Maraming salamat sa pagkakataon na makapag-share.
Amen. Maraming salamat, Jay. It's amazing how really God designed anger in our life. Grabe, ang dami kong natutunan. You know, na ang anger pala ay talagang built-in. By default, we have this anger. But the main objective is to control and to have a biblical kind of anger. So maraming salamat, Jay. Natuto ako dun sa sinabi mong stay tuned spiritually. Yun talagang yun talagang number 1 na parang sabi ko, I need to be close to God para talagang I have this righteous anger. Meron ba righteous anger? Parang ang hirap unawain ng righteous anger. Parang, wow, hindi ko yata kaya maging righteous anger. So, you know, amen. I want to learn more about this study and you know, maraming salamat ulit, Jay. Thank you very much.